Daryl had to send him to heaven and then taunted the crowd to kill zombies to destroy their heads. Do not know this. Rick looked at the guy in front of him, and there was no doubt that he was a real prick. This is Rick and Daryl's first encounter. Rick explained to Daryl that the cuffing of Dixon was not a whim. He did not get along with the others. At this point, T-Dog intervenes, claiming that it wasn't Rick's fault but that he lost the key. He also told Daryl that he locked the rooftop door on his way out so the zombies couldn't catch him. Daryl was relieved, and he thought his brother was dead. He then asks where Dixon is, and he will rescue him. Rick said he would take him there. Lori was upset when she heard him say that. Even Shane thought he was stupid. Why fight for the lives of others? Rick said it was because of him too, and they couldn't leave Dixon alone. He would even be starved to death. Rick then turned his attention to Glen, the meaning of which is self-evident. He liked this Asian boy. Glen was willing to lead the way despite his apparent resistance. Finally, T-Dog also came forward and said he was willing to go. Rick also showed a leader's temperament at this time. Daryl's unruly personality is something that only Rick can conquer. The team leader is now Shane, who is now very opposed to Rick doing so. If the zombies at this time attack, what to do? Rick said that to protect the camp needs a lot of weapons. He tried to bring all the guns from the police station but lost them on the road. After they get the weapons can better protect the camp. Hearing this, Shane didn't say anything. But Lori started complaining again. Rick had just gotten out of danger, and now he had to go back to save someone that everyone was annoyed with, and she said she didn't want Rick to risk his life. The weapons bag also contains a walkie-talkie to communicate with him, and Rick must tell them not to go to Atlanta. Rick has too many reasons to go back, all due to responsibility. He then said goodbye to Carl Jr. In the eyes of his son, his father is bold and courageous, and perhaps this is an example of a father. They didn't dawdle and were soon on their way. Once they arrived in Atlanta, they parked the car by the railroad tracks, where they could easily retreat. The rest of the way was on foot. They soon arrived at the department store, where only one zombie existed. In order not to make noise, Daryl killed her directly with a crossbow. After a few minutes, they finally arrived at the top of the building. T-Dog broke the lock on the door, and Daryl was the first to rush in to check on his brother's condition. But when he got here, he was furious. There was only a saw and a severed hand on the ground. Daryl turned around and aimed his crossbow at T-Dog. Rick would not let him do that and took the pistol and pointed it at Daryl. Daryl then calmed down. He doesn't actually hate T-Dog, he's just venting his emotions, and he knows Dixon's character better than anyone else. Then he asked T-Dog for a square towel to put away the severed hand. He calmly analyzed the blood on the ground as too little. Dixon must want to stop the bleeding. They had to follow the blood trail and eventually came inside another door. Daryl called out as they walked, but there was no response. There were only a few zombie corpses along the way. He knew that his brother was strong and had no problem solving the zombies with one hand. Then Rick also found a branding iron on the table, with some skin tissue stuck to it, which is Dixon's means of stopping the bleeding. Finally, they found that the blood trail went all the way to the window. Dixon must have left through this staircase. If he goes outside, it's hard to survive with his injuries. They are reluctant to take a chance on thousands of zombies, but Daryl insists on going out on his own to find them. Rick stops him, and they start arguing again. Rick understands Daryl's feelings, but Dixon can't get far with these injuries. Rick advised Daryl to keep his head in the post-apocalyptic world. He should go to the neighborhood to look for it and evacuate if he can't find it. Perhaps Daryl was born to be Rick's right-hand man, and only Rick could calm him down. Until the afternoon, they did not find Dixon but risked getting the bag of guns back. They found that their car was gone when they arrived at the railroad tracks. Rick guesses that Dixon probably drove it away. Daryl felt bad, and he knew his brother's temper. He might have gone back to the camp to take revenge. During the time they were out, something also happened at the camp. Shane took Carl to play in the water as usual, just like he did with his son, but Lori very coldly called her son back. By the time her son was gone, Lori had told Shane in no uncertain terms that their relationship was over. Shane had nothing to say. It was so unfair to him. Since the end of the world, he has protected Lori and Carl but cannot do anything with this woman. And on the other side of the waterhole, 4 women helped the men wash their clothes. They talked and laughed, reminiscing about the good life before the world's end. Hearing their laughter, the man behind them came over. She is Carol's husband and a typical domestic violence man. He scolded Carol, "Focus on your laundry and cut the crap." Andrea, who is highly educated and naturally uncomfortable with this situation, approached the man and tried to reason with him. But the man didn't take it well. Instead, he used a lot of profanity and told her to mind her own business. It was his family's business. Then he ordered Carol to come with him. Knowing that Carol would be beaten again if she went back with him, Andrea began to advise Carol that there was no need to be afraid of him. This angered the man, who slapped Carol in front of several people and then tried to take her away by force. As they argued, Shane came over, threw the man to the ground, and punched him hard. He took out his frustration with Laurie on the man. He then warned him never to bully Carol again. Carol was on the sidelines, not learning her lesson, and couldn't bear to let her husband get beaten up like this. Shane left the place after taking his anger out, and Carol kept apologizing in front of her husband. In the evening, the man in the tent is considered to have recovered some, but he does not want to go out to dinner and even wants his daughter to stay with him. Carol took her daughter away on other excuses. If it weren't for her daughter, how could she have been willingly subjected to domestic violence? Then the crowd ate dinner at the camp, looking a bit cozy. Rick and the others were without a car and thought Dixon would retaliate against the camp, so they had to hurry back as fast as they could. Dixon did not appear, but the camp did have a crisis. The man was still sleeping in his tent when he suddenly heard what seemed to be some kind of movement outside and thought his wife was bothering him again. He was about to teach her a lesson when he realized it was a zombie. He was already stunned and was bitten to death right away. Andrea's sister Amy came to the car to look for something, just got out of the vehicle, and also encountered the zombie, directly bitten on her arm. Hearing her scream, the crowd immediately looked towards that side. The crowd panicked at once. Shane was the first to step forward and shoot the zombie. Not far away, Rick and 4 people heard the sound of gunfire, more vigorously towards the camp to rush. Due to Rick's departure, the camp had no more combat power. Zombies have bitten several people. Amy was also bitten. Andrea almost collapsed. Watching her sister being bitten by the zombies, and looking at her painful appearance, Andrea did not know what to do to save her. Shane protects women and children. The entire camp had fallen by now, and most men had no experience fighting zombies. The men who could fight could only look after their own families. They retreated as they went. There were too many zombies. It was good that Rick and others finally arrived at this time.